What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Got a nice little 5-gamer last night. Double the games tonight, double your pressure. More like double your pain, probably, but we'll see. Last night was, the Leafs lost in a shootout, which is hilarious, but they scored 2 power play goals, which is nearly not enough for their prices last night. Igor had a shutout. The best goal of the night was Spencer Knight. If you played Kings, that sucks. So it was kind of spread out last night. Montreal won, started off really strong, and then didn't do anything the rest of the way. Buffalo won, kind of got there a little bit. If you double 3-man stacked, you're kind of not in the best spots. You needed some one-offs, but it's kind of what happens on a 5-game slate. On this 10-game slate, we have some monster totals. We have some small totals, lots of good teams in power play and good power play spots, some teams on back-to-backs. Joining me to break it all down, Slim Cliffy. What's going on?
Yeah, not a whole lot, man. Montreal scored, 3 goals in the first 14 minutes, 2 power play, 1 shorthanded, and then didn't score again until overtime. Nick Suzuki, 4-point night, though. He had a great night. Should shout out, he's there in chat, Michael Peterson. He took down the $5 single entry last night. He had Slavkovsky and Suzuki with Buffalo 1. Sam Miskevich went off, Ethan Del Mastro, and Lane Hudson on the blue line. So congrats to him. Love to see people win. I think you min cash last night.
Snuck in there.
Yeah. Hey, man, it all counts. I min cash last night. I also had I'm Montreal power play stacked with two-thirds of Toronto 3. Eventually, I'll learn my lesson, relying on the Toronto Maple Leafs to do anything but disappoint anybody that puts their faith in them in any way whatsoever. But hey, for a short slate, we'll take the main cash. We'll move along. 10-game slate here today. A lot of teams that played last night are playing tonight. San Jose, Buffalo, Tampa Bay, the Islanders. So there's going to be some information that we don't have right now. We have most of it, though. Interesting slate with some matchups I'm not really looking forward to, but that's kind of the way it goes over the final couple months of the NHL season. So definitely still some very interesting spots that we'll get to as we go through these games one by one.
Yep. And Brendan Shanahan, an avid listener to the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show, if you're tuned in right now, I would advise you to go trade a first-round pick for Riley Smith. But anyway, that's satire. The first-round pick, but he is an avid listener of the show. Let's get into this slate. Probably not. But before we do, just wanted to say thank you guys so much for tuning in again every day with us. There are already 100 of you trickling in here on this lovely Tuesday afternoon, wherever you are in the world. If you do want to go premium for a DFS membership, click that top link, Stochastic one. That will take you to a landing page where you can use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off your first week or month of any subscription. MLB is coming up. Subscriptions aren't live. When they are, we'll make sure to get a deal better than 15% for you. If you do want to take advantage of the sports betting side of things, you can click that Odd Shopper link. You can sign up for the Portfolio EV. If you follow Greg Ehrenberg or Nathan Joyce or Dave Laffey, any of the Ben Raza, like any of the guys, even Jake occasionally will figure out his Twitter password and give out some bets. So if you do want to do that, you can click the bottom link, get some Portfolio EV, and check it out. Trent Frederick to the Oilers are up here. Yeah, I mean, they traded him through New Jersey so they can retain 75%. It's a good deal for the Oilers this season, because it's almost it's like $500,000 cap hit prorated to the rest of the season. But, that's what happens when you let Dylan Holloway go. You have to make reactionary moves. But let's get into this slate. San Jose Sharks with a 2.7 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Skinny Swords have a 3.7 total. The Sabres should not have a 3.7 total against anyone in the world. They are unbelievably frustrating team. I've watched way more Buffalo Sabre hockey than I care to admit this season. And they played the Habs last night. Did you watch that game? Just dumb penalty after dumb penalty. They're just they're very frustrating. However, this is probably the best power play spot of power play spots here tonight, which is saying something because there's a lot of good power play spots on this slate. Both these teams played last night, so we don't know exactly what the lines are going to be. I would imagine Buffalo runs back Thompson, Peterka, Kulik. We'll see.
Yeah, Buffalo didn't really change much last night. So
it was the Sharks that kind of flip-flop things. I think they swapped Celebrini and Wenberg in the third period. So I don't know if that's going to stick, but it's an early lock, so we'll see. On the Buffalo side, I don't mind Buffalo 1 here. I think I'd prefer more of a Thompson one-off or some sort of a Peterka Thompson 2-man or a Thompson Tuck 2-man, just because this is a great power play spot. And that top line's expensive. And Kulik, will play 14, 15 minutes, doesn't get that top power play time. Because that line is $19K. And when you're getting up into that range, obviously we'll have to talk about Edmonton. We'll have to talk about Colorado. We'll have to talk about Tampa and all those expensive lines. But the top line for Edmonton's is only $500 more than this Buffalo top line. So it's just I know Edmonton's been struggling, but would you rather play Connor McDavid, Zach Hyman, Nugent Hopkins for $500 more than Kulik, Peterka, Thompson? Generally, the answer is going to be yes. So it's kind of hard for me to prioritize Buffalo 1 because of their price. I'm fine with the Thompson one-off. You want to do some sort of power play stack, I think that is completely fine. It is a great power play spot, and it's going to be Vitek Vanacek in net for the Sharks here tonight. On the Sharks side, obviously we have to wait and see what the lines are going to be, but I would imagine they go back to Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund. That's just a guess from me. Just because, they were down in the third period, I think. I don't know. But Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund does give me some interest at 17-1 coming in right around their top 2 stack. Back-to-back on the road does worry me a little bit, but as you saw last night, Buffalo paraded to the box. Rasmus Dahlin took so many dumb penalties. He took responsibility for it after the game because he got the C on his chest. But, if they play down to the Sharks again, like they played down to Montreal last night, actually, technically, Montreal is a better team than Buffalo. Buffalo is literally the only team in the East out of the playoff race. But if Buffalo plays down to the competition, I do like San Jose 1. I don't mind San Jose 2 as a filler, 12-1, assuming it's Wenberg, Zetterlund, Smith. That line has been good, and they're cheap enough. So I like stuff on both sides, but, have to wait and see with warm-ups.
Yeah. I'm going to say I really do like Buffalo 1 here. There's a few reasons for that. One, they're at $19K, perfectly reasonable price here tonight, considering, we'll talk. I think there's one real smash spot later on that we'll talk about, but they're a little bit cheaper than Edmonton, a little bit cheaper than Pittsburgh, a little bit more expensive than Detroit. So, they're kind of in a sweet spot right there. Yes, I did watch that game last night. Montreal almost blew that. It was a parade to the penalty box in the first period. After that, Buffalo pretty much straight up dominated the second and the third. To the point where I was kind of happy Montreal actually got to overtime. That top line largely looked pretty good last night. That Thompson goal was just holy crap. Just a one-timer under the bar from 35 feet. It's that
was a pit whistle. That was a rocket.
Yeah, that top line has been really, really good offensively. 3.8 expected goals per 60 minutes. You get Peterka and Thompson on the top power play. I was looking at those stochastic projections. If you want to take Peterka out, if you want to take Yuri Cooley out, and put in Tage Thompson instead, or Alex Tuck instead, it brings the line a little over 20K, but it brings the line projection to over 40 DK points, which is really, really, really high. Like, it's higher than Edmonton won here tonight if you play Thompson, Tuck, and Peterka. And, like, I'm not worried about any of the 5-on-5 matchups from the San Jose side, like, regardless of what the lines are.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It is a great, as you mentioned, the power play spot. It is a great power play spot. San Jose, third most time shorthanded per game in the league over the last 5 weeks of game action. Over the last, basically since Christmas, third most power play goals against per game in the league. And, Buffalo's power play, I still think will struggle without Jason Zucker. Maybe Jason Zucker's back tonight. I don't know. But it is a really, really good power play spot for them. So, like, I'm fine with, like, play Buffalo 1 if you want. I'm fine with taking out Kulik and putting in Alex Tuck. Like, Alex Tuck is getting a lot of ice time. Like, Alex Tuck is on, like, quite the little heater. 11 goals and 19 points in his last 20 games. Averaging around 3 shots per game. Like, I really do like the Buffalo side here. This is a case, I said last night, I kind of like the second line. I think tonight is a case where I prefer the top line. I even prefer kind of taking Kulik off and putting Tuck there, even if it's a little bit more expensive. They're projecting extremely well here tonight. So I really do like Buffalo 1. On the San Jose side, like, if it is Celebrini to Foley Eklund, I do have interest in that line. For this, 2 reasons. One, it's a good matchup. Buffalo 1 is not good defensively. 3.3 expected goals against, 3.9 actual goals against. That top line with Celebrini there has been really good. They're also 17,100. There's not really a ton in that 16 to 18K price range. Like, we'll get to Columbus in a second. There's Dallas in a decent matchup at home without Jack Hughes against New Jersey. They're like Anaheim on the road, maybe. Like, there's just not a lot in that, that mid price range that's really drawing my eye. So that's why I kind of like San Jose 1 here. But for me, this is a Buffalo game. I really do like the Sabres top line.
Yeah. Nashville Predators, 2.7 total. Heading into Boston, the Bruins have a 3.9 total. Second highest total on the slate for the Bruins. Marchand is out. He is week to week, so that fully correlates. I would assume fully correlates the top line. I think they ran power plays in practice yesterday.
Yeah, it's geeky. It's geeky Lindholm, Pasternak on the top power play unit.
Yeah, Nashville didn't run lines this morning, but I would assume they go back to O'Reilly, Marchessault, Forsberg, just because, like, we were talking, like, Cliffy was talking about Matthew Nyes being ridiculously overpriced, Andrei Kuzmenko. Can we talk about Steven Stamkos being 6,700? He doesn't have a point in 13 games, and in those 13 games, he's had more than 3 shots on goal once. 1 shot bonus in the last 13 games, 0 points. That's probably why they're running out O'Reilly, Forsberg, Marchessault. But then you run into, like, Forsberg and Marchessault just don't play well defensively together. Like, they haven't all season. O'Reilly, he's not the defensive center he was with the Blues. That top line, 2.8 expected goals against, 3.1 actual in 270 minutes. Like, that kind of puts the Boston top line in play for me because they're fully correlated, but, like, the price is a bit much for me at 20,700. They just don't create a ton. It's very similar to, I don't know if they're a dump and chase line like Florida one is, but their numbers are very similar offensively to the Florida top line. And on a slate where you have, Colorado for $1,500 more, you have Edmonton 1 for a little bit less. You have, Tampa for less. It's just like it's a little hard to prioritize in single entry. I think in MME, it's fine. 20 max, I'd have a little bit. Obviously, the more lineups I make, the more I'd have Boston 1. If you look at the Stokastic projections, like David Pastrnak is projected for like 30% more than any skater. including Nathan McKinnon. The last time I checked, I think he was like over 20 and McKinnon was like 17 or something. Maybe my math is wrong, but he is projected for a lot more DK points than anyone else per the Stochastics projections. So, if you don't want a full stack Boston one, I think a one-off Pastrnak certainly in play. I don't particularly love Boston too, especially without Marchand. Like Lindholm's been fine defensively. Cliffy has some good nuggets in his article that he wrote that you can subscribe for free. Check his Twitter at SlimCliffy. He's been terrible offensively, decent defensively. So really it would only be Boston one off Pastrnak. On the Nashville side, if you want to play Nashville 1 in MME, that's fine, but I'm pretty much out on Nashville here.
I'm just out on this game, generally speaking. Like if you want to play Boston 1, I think it's fine because Nashville's not a good defensive team. Obviously, they are going through their injuries of their own. But as you mentioned, there are other lines. Like I just talked about, but like I'd rather play Buffalo here tonight with Alex Tuck instead of Peterka on the top line. And there are other lines in that 20 to 22K range that I'd rather play. So you mentioned David Pasternak's projection. It is tops on the board here tonight. And he's almost 4 DK points higher than the next closest winger. It's just like he is, arguably one of the best plays on the slate. If you wanted 2-man in with Morgan Geekie, like, okay, fine. I'm not full stacking the Bruins. Same thing with Nashville. Like if you want a one-off Forsberg or you want a one-off Marchessault or something, fine. The other thing with Nashville, and I mentioned it to you this morning in DMs, the game the other night against the Rangers, Nashville went 11-7. They had 0 line combinations play 4 minutes together. They had 1 line combination play 3 minutes and 16 line combinations play at least 1 minute. That's a blender that makes John Tortorella jealous. So, one-off Forsberg, fine. One-off Marchessault, fine. But I'm not stacking it. I really don't have a lot of interest in stacking either side here.
Yeah, I concur with that analysis. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3, I don't know what the heck that is, with a 3.4 total heading into Detroit. The Red Wings have a 2.7 total. Carolina didn't have morning skate, and they did flip Svechnikov and Jarvis in the last game, but they do that a bunch. It's something to pay attention to if you are going to be stacking Carolina. They're going, as far as we know, in the top stacks, we have Rantanen, Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook, Hall, Blake, Kotkaniemi. Detroit, Larkin, Raymond, Casper, DeBrincat, Kane, Comfort. No one's playing Carolina 1 here tonight, whether it's Svechnikov or Jarvis, because of the price. Because, if you get that expensive, you're going to go play Colorado, right? But Detroit's pretty terrible, if we're being honest. And it's not Cam Talbot, and that's Alex Leon, Lyon, however you pronounce it. And it's a pretty good power play spot. Now, Aho, Rantanen, and Svechnikov offensively, since they've been together, it's 3 games or 4 games, whatever. It's it's a pretty good offensive sample. That top line for Detroit with Casper is not as bad as the rest of the team, but it's still below league average. I think Aho, Rantanen, and Svechnikov can have the run of the play there. At 1.2%, I think they're a pretty sneaky. It's funny to say that they're sneaky. They have a 3.4 road total. No one's playing them, but they're a pretty sneaky leverage play in MME. I think you can even play them in single entry if you are into spicy food. So, yeah, I like them here tonight. Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. I do have interest as a filler as well. If it's Svechnikov, Stahl, Martinook, I would have less interest. But with Jarvis there, I like them a bit more at 13.6. Now, the Detroit side is a bit interesting because literally no one's playing them. They have the top line is under 1%. They have a 2.7 total. That's not awful. And that top line is really, really good offensively with Casper. That top line with Aho, Svechnikov, and Rantanen, not great defensively. So, I'm not running out to play Detroit 1 here because, Buffalo one's only $1,000 more. The Sharks line is $900 cheaper or whatever. But I think there's some merit to having a little bit of Detroit one in MME just because that top line plays some bond hockey.
I don't have any interest in Detroit. The reason being, this is a bad power play spot, and these guys are the power play merchantiest team that has ever power play merchanted in the history of the NHL. If they don't get that there on the power play, they're not getting there at 5. I mean, I'm not going to say they're not. Anything can happen in hockey, but I really don't think that they're going to get there at 5-on-5. There is low ownership on them. For $800 cheaper, there's also low ownership on the Dallas top line. You know what I mean? And Dallas top line, I don't know if anybody's been watching New Jersey play hockey for the last 2 months, but I don't even know how much better of a matchup or how bad of a matchup it is for Dallas. We'll get to that in a second. So, like, considering how bad a power play spot it is for Detroit, I'm out. For me, this is about the Carolina side. Now, I understand wanting to play Carolina 1 because there is low ownership. The other thing is that the Detroit penalty kill is bad. Like, it is just flat out bad. It was bad under Lalonde. It's been bad under McClellan. Genuinely a bottom 5 penalty kill. The thing is Carolina's power play has really, really struggled since Rantanen got there. The thing about that is their power play numbers aren't wholly different from when before Rantanen got there. With Rantanen there, they're at about 54 shots per 60 minutes and about 8.7 expected goals. Before he got there, it was 55 shots and 8 expected goals. Like, literally the only real difference is shooting percentage. They're shooting, on the power play, they're shooting like 6% with Rantanen, and it was 3 times higher before he got there. I can't imagine just swapping in Mikko Rantanen into Nature's spot on the power play is something that should cost you 2/3 of your shooting percentage. It feels like this is a pretty good get right spot for that power play. Now, the thing about that is Detroit isn't taking penalties. They're the least penalized team in the league over the last 5 weeks of NHL play. Since Christmas, they're also the least penalized team in the league. So, like, basically under McClellan, they've been taking fewer penalties than anyone else. That's what worries me about Carolina. So while I'm fine playing Carolina 1, honestly, again, I think I'd rather go play Buffalo. We'll get to Colorado and Tampa here in a second. I think there are other spots you can go to. Honestly, if I'm playing Carolina, I'm probably playing the depth. The one line that kind of stands out to me, I'm going to be honest, is Hall, Blake, Kotkaniemi. The reason they stand out is they're 10,400, right? That's true filler status. So if you're playing Edmonton power play, you're playing Colorado 1, or you're playing Tampa 1, and you need that sub 12K line to go with them, Hall, Blake, and Kotkaniemi, 10,400. Hall and Kotkaniemi in 85 minutes together so far this season, 4 expected goals, 2.7 actual goals. Even though they're not shooting well, they're still above average scoring-wise at 5-on-5. And with how cheap they are, they don't need to go off. Like, basically, if you can get like a Hall from Kotkaniemi goal, you're fine. You know what I mean? So, honestly, if you want to play like Stahl, Martinook, Jarvis, I think that's perfectly okay. They've been a really good line as well. You get Jarvis on the top power play unit, assuming that that's how they line up at warm-up. I think this is a game where I'm most interested in the Carolina depth, because you're right. The Detroit top line has been largely fine, pretty good. The rest of the lines, not really. And I think Carolina's depth can take advantage of that.
That is a valid statement there. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 3 total. Heading into Tampa, the Lightning have a 3.6 total. Tampa played last night with Vasilevsky. It's going to be Jonas Johansson. For the Lightning, Yegor Chinnikov back for Columbus. He's going to slot on that second line with Jenner and my boy Kent Johnson. Top line of Fantilli, Marchenko, Voronkov. I will mention Danforth, Olivier, Zach Aston Reese, because they're coming in with almost 5% projected, because they're 8,300 and they've actually been decent offensively. Tampa, as far as we know, going Kucherov, Gensel, Point. They're probably going 11-7 again. But they have been running Kucherov, Gensel, Point, Hagel, Sorelli, Gergensons. Like, Tampa is going to send out Hagel, Sorelli against top comp, but like with Gergensons there, it hasn't been great, and it doesn't really matter because Jonas Johansson's in net. So I think at 16-8, if you want to play Columbus 1 here at 3.8% projected, I think that's perfectly fine. They're fully correlated, and they have been good since Fantilli got back up there. Not as good as with Monahan, but at 16,800, I am cool with it. That second line is where things get a bit spicier because they're coming in under 1% projected. They're $2,700 cheaper. You get Ken Johnson on the top power play unit. Boone Jenner and Ken Johnson so far this season in like 4 games at 5-on-5 have been pretty electric offensively, we can say. And you add in Yegor Chinnikov. No offense to JVR. Yegor Chinnikov, much better offensively there. I do like that Columbus second line, mostly because, 1, it's Jonas Johansson. 2, they'll be facing Kucherov, Gensel, Point, and that line is fairly leaky defensively. 2.8 expected goals against in a 500-minute sample. That's below league average. And again, it's Jonas Johansson in net. So I think there's 2 playable lines for Columbus. If you want to play that third line because you need like super cheap 2-mana Danforth, Olivier, whatever, do what you need to do there. Tampa, I don't want to play a 7.5% projected Zemgus Gergensen line. It's just not for me. And Columbus 2 is $200 cheaper anyway, so I'm out on the Hagel Sorelli line. Like, if you want to one-off Hagel, fine. Tampa 1 is a little bit more interesting at 22,000. This is a very, very good power play matchup, and they're fully correlated. The problem that I'm running into is Colorado is going into Pittsburgh, which is equally as good of a matchup, and they're $200 more, not back-to-back on the road, and they're rested. You also have Edmonton at 19.5 going at home to Anaheim. You know what I mean? So, like, it's hard for me to prioritize Tampa 1 here. I think they're fine. I'd be more likely to lean to a Kucherov one-off, similar to what I was doing with Boston 1. So I prefer this the Columbus side in terms of stacking. I think a Kucherov one-off makes the most sense to me on the Tampa side.
Yeah, I think the point that you mentioned with Colorado, I think, is the salient one here, because they are only $200 more expensive. They're also a line that gets a lot of minutes and perfectly correlated on the top unit and all that. And they're coming in with similar ownership projection. Sorry. That's the thing. It's like if Tampa 1 was coming in with like 4% projected ownership and Colorado was at like 15%, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see the case here. The projection right now has Tampa Bay at 12 and Colorado at 11.8%. You know what I mean? They're basically even. So if they're basically going to be even, like, you know, we'll get to the Avs game in a second. I'd probably rather just play Colorado. Now, obviously for 20 maxing or 150 or something like that, that's a different scene. But there's just a direct pivot I'd rather play here tonight. So that's why I'm kind of out on Tampa. Again, like you said, like if you want to one-off Kucherov or Brandon Hagel or something like that, that's perfectly fine. But there are just other expensive lines I'm prioritizing. So by default, I guess I'm more interested in Columbus. I do like Columbus too as a line. Like that line has the look where like they could be a pretty good second scoring line over the next 6 weeks. My problem is the price. It's 14,100, right? It's kind of that no man's land where they're not quite filler status, but they're not quite in that mid price range. You know, where you might pair a couple lines like Dallas 1 and Detroit 1 or Dallas 1 and even Columbus or 1 or something like that, right? You know what I mean? For me, it's just kind of a tough pricing. Like it feels weird to say, but I wouldn't feel better playing them at 16K, but it almost kind of would make more sense. Like when you look at roster construction, because at 14,100, like really don't know who you're pairing them with. Like, are you playing like Columbus 2, like Dallas 1 here tonight or something like that, or Columbus 2, Detroit 1? Like that, for me, I just think Columbus 1, considering that they are perfectly correlated, We do have a sample of them being very. I think the other thing is that we do have much bigger sample of them being good offensively, right? 3.1 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals since they got reunited, or not reunited, but united when Sean Monahan got hurt, and they're only 16,800. I do worry about minutes. I do think that they're going to be closer to that 17 to 19 range rather than 19 to 21 that they were getting before Boone Jenner returned. That is a concern, but it's also 16,800 and it's also Jonas Johansson. So you compare him with San Jose, with Dallas, with Buffalo. We'll get to Minnesota and Anaheim later. I do think that there are just some lines that I'd rather play them with. So for me, in general, I'm more interested in the Columbus side, whether it's Columbus 1 or Columbus 2. I think that's where my interest is. But I think specifically on the Columbus side, I have a little bit more interest in the top line.
Yep. Let's get to one of the 2 5.5 totals on the slate, as Jake has blessed us with an update. Thank you. Calgary Flames with a 2.5 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.9. This game sucks. Here we are. Calgary going Kadri, Huberdeau, Coronado, Coleman, Backlund, Farabee. Can you just put Farabee back with Kadri? Is it that difficult? And then Frost, Sharangovich, Pospisil, Philly going Konechny, Kuzmenko, Lawton, Cliffy's boy, Andrei Skumenko. No matter where Kuzmenko is, he'll find something wrong with him, which it's not no fault to him. When he was on the Vancouver power play, he just never shot the puck. Now he's just way overpriced. Tippett, Mitchkov, Couturier, Forrester, Cates, Brink. I just want to be I have no interest in this game. Let's move on. But there is a line that I kind of have a little bit of interest in. I don't have a ton of interest in the Calgary top line at 15-3. They've been better offensively of late, but they're still really bad defensively. They are fully correlated, and the Flyers don't have a very good penalty kill. If you happen to get 1-2% in MME, sure. This is a revenge game for all the heads involved in that train if you do live on Narrative Street. I just don't have a ton of interest on the Flames side, so I'm more than likely out. The Flyer side isn't much more interesting, but their prices are pretty good here. Forrester, Cates, Brink, 11,500. I'm not running out to play them at 11,500, but it's a lot more it's easier to play them at 11.5 than they were when they were 15.3 or whatever last week. They are coming in with 5.2% projected ownership. That's really high. I'd probably avoid that line unless I really needed the savings. The line that does interest me the most is Mitchkov, Couturier, Tippett. The Flames have a terrible penalty kill, but the Flyers power play is outside of Pittsburgh. You can argue Pittsburgh, and they're from the same coaching tree, Torts and Sullivan. Their power play sucks. So that's why I don't mind that line. Tippett's on one unit. Mitchkov's on the top unit. Couturier is not even on a unit. They are coming in at 8.1% projected, 13-1, which kind of sucks. But in their 65-minute sample, they have been very, very good offensively. I think I'm fine with the Mitchkov one-off. You want to pair him with Tippett, that's fine. Konechny, Kuzmenko, Lawton at 15-3. They've actually been decent. I don't want to play them, but if you had to ask me which 15,300 line I had to play in this game, the Lawton line or the Kadri line, I would give a slight lean to the Lawton line. I think I'd rather commit seppuku than play either of them, but I don't mind the Flyers Lawton line just because they're fully correlated, and maybe by accident they'll score a power play goal.
Yeah, just quickly, the only thing I have interest in on the Calgary side is actually Frost, Zary, Pospisil, and I would probably drop Pospisil and just make it a 2-mana Frost and Zary. The reason is Frost is decent at creating off the rush, and so is Connor Zary. At least he has been this year when he's been healthy. And once you get into some depth matchups and depth pairings from the Flyers, I think you can kind of get them off the rush, and they're cheap enough where if you need a cheap 2-man to go with Carolina, Tampa Bay, Colorado, what have you, I think Frost and Zary can do it. So that I have a little bit of interest in that, but honestly, that's it. I don't have interest in anything else. Again, For the love of I don't want to go on a long tangent here. Sometimes I wonder if coaches actually watch the players that they're trading for.
Is this
because like if you've watched Joel Farabee at all, I mean at all, in the last 4 years, this is a guy that plays off the rush. He's not a forechecker. So you put him with fucking Michael Backlund? What?
Just put him with Kadri and be done with it and leave him there.
It's insane. The players and coaches talk all the time about chemistry, and you put two guys together that could not be more dissimilar in style and be like, work it out, fellas. Anyways, Frost and Zary, the only thing for me on the Flame side. On the Flyer side, I mean, Forster, Cates, and Brink, fine, because they're 11,500. Again, considering the ownership, like their ownership is projection is 8 times higher than their top two. Anytime that they're like that, if they burn me, they're going to burn me. I won't have them in my lineup. For me, it's probably Tippett, Michkov, Couturier that I have interest in. Tippett and Michkov hasn't been a big sample going back basically to the start of this calendar year, but they've been really good offensively whenever they have played together. 69 shot attempts, 4.6 expected goals per 60. Michkov's obviously been on a little bit of a tear since they returned from the Four Nations break. He's got 19 shots in 4 games, not to mention the points to go along with it. What worries me is that this is a pretty good power play spot. Not that Philly has a good power play at all, but those other lines are perfectly correlated. That does concern me a bit, but I think Tippett, Michkov, Couturier is honestly their best line, at least offensively. So like a 2-man of like Tippett, Michkov or something like that. That's where my interest is. So the way we have them listed, they're both third lines. I think technically I have the most interest in the third lines for both teams here.
Winnipeg Jets, they 3.1 total heading into Long Island. That sucks for everyone involved. The Islanders have a 2.4 total. Winnipeg going Connor Scheifele, Velarde, Ehlers, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton. Islanders going Horvat, Lee, Pajot, Nelson, Palmieri, Holmstrom, yada, yada, yada. Honestly, like I know Dylan Sandberg's out for Winnipeg, but it is Connor Hellebuck in net tonight. The only line I would consider playing is Horvat, Lee, Pajot at 14-4. But at that point, I'll just save the $300 and go play, Columbus 2 against Jonas Johansson and not these guys in a 2.4 home total against Connor Hellebuck. So pretty much out on the Islanders. Don't love the Jets here. If the Islanders took more penalties, I'd have a lot more interest because that top line is very good on the power play. They are fully correlated, but they're not super great at 5-on-5. I think I'd rather play Buffalo here. Or I'd spend up for Colorado or Carolina, something like that. I think they're fine in MME. You never know what Sorokin you're going to get, but I don't even think it's Sorokin in net tonight. But even so, like, I'm kind of mum on Winnipeg here. I think my favorite line on Winnipeg, just because they're so cheap, would be Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton. If you're looking to do some expensive Edmonton power play stack, for example, they're 9,600. You can pluck 2 of the guys, create some space for yourself, and the bottom 6 of the Islanders are just absolute shit. So really, Winnipeg 1's fine in MME. Winnipeg 3 if you need the savings, but other than that, this game's kind of meh.
Yeah, I will also mention the Islanders did change up their lines last night. They moved Horvat next to Brock Nelson and Simon Holmstrom, and then Lee, Palmieri, Pajot. Listen, it's a 10-game slate. They're facing Connor Hellebuck. They have a 2.4 total. If my night gets sunk because the New York Islanders are the optimal line, tip my cap, wake up tomorrow, go right back at it. I'm just no interest in the Islanders. For me, my interest is in Winnipeg 1 here. Couple reasons. One, I was looking at why the Islanders penalty kill has been getting better. The only reason is the save percentage. Last 5 weeks of action, so 7 weeks including the Four Nations break, The Islanders have a 930 save percentage on the penalty kill. To put that into perspective, 900 would be like they might be regressing from here. Like 880, 890 is like a really, really good mark on the penalty kill. They're at 930. Like that is something that is going to crash, and it's something that's going to crash hard. And feels like facing arguably the best power play, certainly a top 3 power play in the NHL is one of those spots that could make it crash pretty hard. And 3.5% ownership, 11.1% top 2 stack. You know, they're $2,000 cheaper than Colorado. Like that does matter. You know, they're cheaper than Tampa Bay by almost $2,000. They're cheaper than Carolina. They're cheaper than Boston. They also, you know, of the 5 lines that are priced over 20K, they have the second lowest ownership projection. I do think there are a lot of reasons to play them. It's also one of those reasons why I don't really want to play Carolina here tonight, is because for $800 cheaper, I can go to a Winnipeg line that has been one of the best DFS lines all year. So I kind of like Winnipeg one here. Like there is another line over 20K that I'd rather play, but I'd rather play Winnipeg than Boston, and I'd rather play Winnipeg than Carolina. I would also rather play them than Tampa Bay. So they're not my favorite over 20K line, but I do think that Winnipeg's going kind of underrated. If I was 20 maxing here tonight, I might have one of them. If I have 150, I probably do have like 5 or 6 of them. This isn't a bad spot for the Jets. I don't mind Winnipeg one here, but it's really my only interest in this game.
Yeah, and just to put the 930 save percentage on the power play in perspective, Connor Hellebuyck, probably the front runner for the Vezina on the season at all strengths, 927 save percentage.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely, you know, just kind of insane. Goalies go through that run all the time. But you know, I'm just looking through goalies save percentage on the penalty kill this year. There's like 32 goalies that have at least 125 minutes. The only goalie, there are 2 goalies anywhere is close, and it's Soderblom and Blackwood. There's a couple around 900, and then everybody else is basically like 800 to 880. So like 930 is just, it's not a sustainable mark for a goal for a team.
Yeah. New Jersey Devils with a 2.5 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3 total. I don't know what Jack Hughes' injury is. It might be a broken arm. I don't know if they've announced it. They probably won't announce it, but it seems like he's going to be out for a lengthy period of time. So they're going Hischier, Meyer, Bratt, Mercer, Palat, Tatar, Nason, Hall, Dowling. Dallas is going Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven, Duchesne, Gramlin, Marchment, Johnston, Ben, Dodonov. Now, this Devils team is a complete opposite of their team last year. Like last year, they couldn't save a puck to save their lives, but they stayed in games because they were finishing at an incredible rate. This year, they're getting the goaltending, but they couldn't hit water if they fell out of the boat in the ocean in terms of finishing. So I also don't think that top line is going to be fully correlated. I think Sheldon Keefe is going to have Dawson Mercer on the top power play unit instead of Timo Meier. At 16.5, like I don't mind taking a stab because Hischier and Bratt, at least offensively this season when they've played together, have been very, very good. You throw Timo Meier into the mix. I've said it since he's gotten to New Jersey. The best center on this team for Timo Meier is Nico Hischier. So I don't mind that line at 16.5 going up against Scott Wedgwood or Casey DeSmith, at 7.8%. You know, Miro Haskinen's out still. They've been pumping your boy Cody Ceci with some minutes. I don't mind that top line, but, you know, at that ownership, you know, would I rather play Columbus 1? It's certainly a conversation. Other than that, I'm out on New Jersey. The Dallas side is pretty interesting here because Hintz and Robertson have been on a heater since before the Four Nations break. They're coming in at 1% projected, 17,200. I think they're kind of in that mid-range of lines, 16 to 19K. That does give me some interest here. Stankoven at 3,900 isn't going to kill you. You know what I mean? So, I feel like if he gets you an assist, a couple shots on a block, like 9.3, 10.8 DK points, you're fine. They're going to see a bunch of that Hischier, Meyer, Bratt line. And for as good as Hischier and Bratt have been offensively this season, they haven't been as great as a typical Nico Hischier line is defensively. So I don't mind Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven. If you want to dip down to Johnston, Ben, Dodonov, you can do whatever you want with Dodonov. I think that's fine. The issue is, the Devils' penalty kill has generally been good. So, I don't think you need a power play stack here. I think Wyatt Johnston, Ben, 2-man's fine. I like Dallas 1. If you want to go to Dallas 2, that's fine as well. But I think it's both top lines for me.
Yeah, I will say, just generally speaking, Hischier, Meyer, and Bratt, I think, is going to be a good offensive line. The thing is they're basically in that price range with Columbus 1, with San Jose, with the Dallas top line on the other side, and I'd rather play all three of those lines rather than New Jersey. And then there's no depth line I'd rather play. So I'm out on the Devils. For me, this is a Dallas game. I do like that top line of Robertson, Hintz, Stankoven. I wrote about Logan Stankoven over at Elite Prospects a couple weeks ago. I was looking at a bunch of his tracking data from he played 24 games last season plus this season. Long story short, guys that have his rate of underlying playmaking numbers and zone entry, stuff in transition, getting out of the defensive zone, getting into the offensive zone, all that stuff. Guys that have the rates that he don't end up as busts. At the very, very, very bottom end, we're talking Andre Burakovsky in Colorado stuff when he was basically a top 30 per minute point producer in the league. And at the high end, you're talking a superstar. And I do think Logan Stankoven just kind of basically got snake bit for half a season by shooting percentage. That happens to literally everybody. So it's nothing that really concerns me. That Dallas top line, 3.5 expected goals, 4.4 actual goals with Stankoven up there. I think that kind of speaks to how good he is offensively, because those are numbers that they had last year with Wyatt Johnston and the year before with Joe Pavelski. I really do like Dallas 1. There's no matchup on the New Jersey side that really worries me. In fact, even the New Jersey penalty kill, which was a strength for them basically through the first 40 games, kind of fell apart in the last quarter. I don't think it's really going to get any better because they're still missing some key pieces in the lineup. Obviously, Jack Hughes is still out. No Jonas Siegenthaler. There are key pieces missing from this lineup. I really do like Dallas 1. They are another one of those 15 to 18K lines that I do like here tonight. So it's Dallas 1 for me. If you want to dip down to one of the other Dallas lines, no issue with that. You want to take off Stankoven and put on Johnston or put on Duchesne, make it more of a power play stack. The power play over the last 2 years generates 15% more shots with Thomas Harley running things than with Miro Heiskanen running things. Evidence enough of the last 10 games without Heiskanen in the lineup. Look how good that Dallas power play has been, or 9 games or whatever it's been. I really do like Dallas 1. They're one of my favorite lines. They're my favorite line in this game, and they're one of my favorite mid-price lines on the board.
Yeah, I do like Dallas 1 as well. Before we continue, we have a $9.99 super chat from Michael Thomas, not the Saints wide receiver, I don't think. I'm going to try to decipher what you said here. Thanks for all the help. Going to try and run it back with Columbus and Philly to take down the 20 again. Can I have a goalie this time that scores positive points? You guys rule. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, I remember you did have a run at that 20. You won the 20 with a -6 from Joey Decord, right? Yeah, and you still won. That's literally insane. But thank you for the super chat. Hopefully you can run it back here tonight. If it's not me or Cliffy winning it, you know what I mean? But congrats to you.
Yeah, congrats on that. Yeah, that was the Brink Forster Cates night when they had 11 points or whatever it was.
4
like
goals
11,
on 5 shots.
11 actual points. So yeah, thanks a lot for the super chat. Certainly appreciate it. We'll get to goalies at the end. Hopefully that we give a goalie that won't put up negative points, but disclaimer, no guarantees here.
Yeah, goalies suck. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.5 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.9 total. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Bavillier, Tomasino, Hayes, Heinen, Benstrom. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, Druin, Middlestat, Drury, Colton, Kiviranta. Pittsburgh, I'll be quick. If you want to play a little bit of Pittsburgh in 150, sure. If you need a cheap 2-man, Kevin Hayes, Danton Heinen, sure. Other than that, out on Pittsburgh. This is a Colorado 1 game for me. They ran power plays in practice yesterday. It was still Drouin and Lehkonen on the top power play, Nichushkin on the second unit. Eventually, I think Nichushkin moves back up, but he did struggle the last time he was there. Maybe it was injury related. I don't know. But Colorado 1 coming in at 11.2%. I know they're 22,200, but this is a line that is still ridiculous. 125-minute sample, 4.9 expected goals for, 3.9 actual. They're controlling the play. Pittsburgh 1 isn't great defensively. They're fully correlated. You know they're going to play their 21, 22 minutes. I don't know what else you want me to say besides I really love Colorado 1 here. Colorado 2 at 14-2. I guess they're fine. And if you kind of hope that like Nichushkin gets onto the power play, but really the only line that I have interest in this game is Colorado
1. Yeah, I really do like Colorado 1 as well. The top line, 4.9 expected goals, 4 actual goals per 60, over 20 minutes each. McKinnon, 49 shots in his last 10 games. I was looking at some data earlier a couple days ago regarding high danger passes. I forget if Pittsburgh was either giving up the most or the second most in the league. It was one or the other. Like, they are a team that gets shredded by really good playmakers. Nathan McKinnon's been one of the best in the league over the last few years. Obviously that line has been tremendous at 5-on-5. The Pittsburgh penalty kill, it's not god awful, but it's not good. Colorado 1 is just in a tremendous spot here. They do have the highest top 2 stack percentage on the board, 28.3%. They're my favorite line on the night. It's just a matter of finding something, whether you want to spend up 22,200 or not. But there are a lot of reasons to really like that line.
Yep. Anaheim Ducks, Los Patos, with a 2.4 total. Heading into Edmonton, the Oilers have a 4 total, highest on the board tonight. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Matt Savoy, whatever. Sorry to you. Tell me how you pronounce it. Anaheim going Vetrano, Terry Strome, Zegras, Carlson, Killorn, McTavish, Gauthier, Colangelo. I think the only line I would have interest in on the Duck side would be Vetrano, Terry Strome, but they're coming in at they're 16,600, which is just kind of a mess, right? For $600 more, you could get Dallas 1. For $100 less, you can get New Jersey 1. For I think $100 less, you get Columbus 1. 2.4 road total. It's like I'm not living and dying with that line as much as they've been good this season. If you want to do a Carlson Zegras 2-man or McTavish Gauthier 2-man, if you need some space, sure. But this is an Edmonton game for me. The top line for Edmonton, 19,500, 12.1% projected ownership. They haven't been as great as they were last year, but they still have very good offensive numbers. This is an excellent power play spot. If you want to make it super expensive, you can take off Nugent Hopkins and add in Draisaitl. I believe that makes it 22,700, which is $500 more than Colorado won. I think that's something I would consider if I'm doing Edmonton. I really like their power play here tonight. I kind of want to prioritize McDavid and Draisaitl and then add in Hyman or Bouchard, something like that. Nugent Hopkins is fine at his price at $5K. He just hasn't had a great season. So like Edmonton 2, just straight up at 15-1, they're the highest projected line of the night at 17%. I feel like some of that ownership is going to go to Edmonton 1. Like, obviously, a lot of that ownership is going to go to Draisaitl, but I'm just going to go McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, McDavid, Draisaitl, Bouchard, something like that. So Edmonton power play stack for me. Ducks, a little expensive. If you want some stuff in MMA, sure.
Yeah, I'll be quick on the Ducks. Like, I don't mind that Vetrano Terry Strome line, 16,600. No ownership on them, under 1% projected ownership, but they're in the same price range as Dallas, as San Jose, as Columbus. Like, those are all lines that I'd rather play here tonight. So, I don't mind them in a nutshell. They are, 3.2 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals since January 1st. They're all perfectly correlated on the same power play. Like, there are reasons to play them, but I just think there are other lines in that price range I'd rather play personally. The question is whether you play Edmonton or not. I mentioned the other one of our recent shows that Ryan Nugent Hopkins is having a really tough season. His forechecking numbers are way down, and his production is basically a fourth line rate on a per minute basis at even strength, and he's played half his time with Connor McDavid. So I think 19,500 is a really cheap price. Like, if you go back to like the first week in November and you say, Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, McDavid at home against Anaheim is under 20K, I think you slam them without a question. It's just been a really tough slog since. It is a good power play matchup, though. Like, the Anaheim penalty kill, the best thing that you can say about it is that it's average. It's basically a below average penalty kill. The Edmonton power play is still really good. So the question is, whether you just play the top line. Do you power play stack? Do you take out Nugent Hopkins, put in Draisaitl? Do you take out Hyman and put in Draisaitl? Like, those are the only questions. It is a really good spot for Edmonton. No issues with playing them over Colorado tonight.
Yeah, I think I slightly prefer Colorado, but that's for me to decide later. That's for you to decide after the show. Minnesota Wild with a 2.7 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 2.8. This game kind of sucks. It, in fact, really sucks, but I already used this game sucks. Suck it up. This game sucks. Minnesota going Boldy, Rossi, Nyquist, Zuccarello, Gaudreau, Marcus Johansson. Seattle going Beniers, Schwartz, Kakko, McCann, Wright, Burakovsky, Stevenson, Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen. On the Seattle side, I think the line that would interest me the most is Wright, McCann, Burakovsky at 12.6. I don't have a ton of interest in them, but at 12.6, that they're a filler and they've played well together. If you want to go to Beniers, Schwartz, Kakko, I guess that's fine at 12.9, but their offensive numbers have really slowed down since a hot start since Kakko got there. Don't have a ton of interest in Seattle. Don't have a ton of interest in Minnesota. Nyquist last season, 75-point season on the top line, top power play, playing with Forsberg and O'Reilly. Now he is still not on the top power play. He is on the top line with Rossi and Boldy. No cappers off. 16,700. I'd rather go play Dallas, Columbus, New Jersey. You name them. Pretty much out on this game.
Yeah. Again, Minnesota, like you just hit the nail on the head with Minnesota 1. I think in a nutshell, the line is okay, but Columbus $100 more expensive, San Jose $400 more expensive, Dallas $500 more expensive. Like, they're all in the same price range. They're all lines I'd rather play. No interest in Minnesota 2, so I'm out on the Wild. For Seattle, like they technically have 3 playable lines, but they also have 0 playable lines, if you know what I mean. I don't really have any interest in playing any of them. The only reason I'm kind of interested is, with Jonas Brodin out, that Minnesota defense certainly is going to be a little bit worse. If anything, it would probably just be Benier, Schwartz, and Kako. And the only reason for that is that they get ice time. They're still getting 18 to 19 minutes. They're all on the same power play unit for whatever that's worth. It is a good power play matchup, but it's not like Seattle is a good power play. Like, just because they are perfectly correlated and play 18 and 19 minutes, I do think you have to consider Benier, Schwartz, Kako, because they're basically priced as a filler. And, no Kaprizov, no Eriksson Ek, no Brodin. Like, this is a fairly thin skating group from the Minnesota side. So I guess Seattle won, but that's really the only interest I have in this game.
Yep. Let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, we have McCarr 8K, Werenski 7K. Under 7K to 6K, we have Rasmus Dahlin, Evan Bouchard, Josh Morrissey, Thomas Harley, Dougie Hamilton. I think, honestly, I'd have Werenski 1, McCarr 2, Dahlin 3. I really like Werenski at 7K. This is the cheapest he's been in a while. He gets Jonas Johansson in net. Obviously, McCarr's fine here. If you are trying to stack him and Colorado 1, it gets a bit wonky. But Rasmus Dahlin also in a great spot. If I'm not spending up for those 3, like Bouchard's fine. He's the definition of a GPP defenseman. He might get you 2.8 or he might get you 30. So other than that, I think I'll be living in the mid to low range.
Cale Makar is the top projected defenseman by raw fantasy point projections here tonight. Zach Werenski has a higher point per dollar projection. So does Jake Wallman. I still do prefer Werenski, but I certainly get playing Makar at 8K. He honestly might be in the best spot on the board other than maybe Buffalo, which is why I also like Dahlin again here tonight. So my order going by kind of value would be Werenski, Makar, Bouchard, Dahlin. There are a lot of top defensemen in very good spots here tonight. I do think this is I don't want to say it's a night where I feel like I have to play an expensive defenseman, but especially even with Jake Wallman, there are a lot of guys over 5K that I think are very, very playable and that have very good projections here tonight that I'm strongly considering. But again, Werenski, Makar, Bouchard, Dahlin would be the order. Wallman, if you want to go down, is perfectly fine. Jackson Lacombe, top power play, good peripherals for Anaheim. Vince Dunn, he's projecting extremely well for Seattle at home. Owen Power's in a really good spot for Buffalo, so he's fine. There's not a lot in that 3 to 4K range, really. Like Brett Kulak, Jake Middleton probably sees more minutes because Brodin's out. Shane Gostisbehere, for the power play, it's a good power play spot, decent power play spot, I should say. Jacob Trouba might have to block a lot of shots against Edmonton. There's just not a lot there, but sub 3K, Darren Radish and Kevin Ball, I think, are okay. Logan Stanley might have to play some more minutes with Dylan Sandberg out. Liam Bichelle coming back into the lineup for Dallas. Declan Chisholm, he might have to get more minutes here from Minnesota. He's under 3K as well. So I do think there are some playable punts here tonight.
I am muted. Let's talk about goalies. This is a goalie slate if I've ever seen one. Let me just read you the top range. 8 to 8,500. Jonas Johansson, Calvin Pickard, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Scott Wedgwood, Freddie Anderson, Casey DeSmith. I'm out on all those. I think if I'm spending up, Connor Hellebuck at 7,900 makes the most sense. I'm fine with Swayman as well. In the mid-range, actually, I'm fine with DeCord as well, 7,800. In the mid-range, Wolf and Gustafson both are fine. Spending down, I just don't really want to spend down here. I really don't want to go below Markstrom at 7,400. I guess if you need to take a flyer on the Ducks starter or Merzlikins, it's fine. But I really, really will find a way not to go below Saros if possible. Really don't want to go below Wolf or Gustafson.
Yeah, the top projected goalie tonight is Connor Hellebuck. He's also the top point per dollar projection goalie. So like I think him at 7,900 really just does make a lot of sense. If you want to go with somebody that'll be a little bit lower owned, like fair bit lower owned, Joey DeCord, 7,800, I think makes a lot of sense. Also throw out Sam Urson. I'm usually not an Urson guy. 7,800 is reasonable, and it's a really good home matchup against Calgary. Like Calgary just doesn't have a good power play. I think the Flyers can kind of stop them at 5-on-5. So I don't see a need to spend 8K and above. Like between Hellebuck, Urson, and DeCord, I think you can live in the high sevens. If you want to go cheaper, there really aren't like too many super cheap goalies. Like Alex Lyon makes me nervous against Carolina. Just like I almost prefer it was Cam Talbot. If you want to go to Philip Gustafson instead of DeCord, I think like that's kind of playable. Assuming Dustin Wolf goes and Dustin Wolf is confirmed, goes for Calgary. I do like Dustin Wolf as well, but honestly, I think this is a good night to spend like 7,700 or 7,900 on your goalie.
Yeah, I do agree there. We'll be back tomorrow for a mid-sized slate here. So look forward to that. Who you liking for your hat trick pick?
Going a little off the board. I'm going with Jackson Blake.
I'll go off the board as well. It's not really off the board, but he is returning tonight. I'm going Yegor Chinnikov.
I like it.
Chinny chin chin. We will be back tomorrow. Thank you guys for tuning in, all 400 and something of you. You guys are insane. We love you. Good luck, everybody, tonight. Let's win some money.
Good luck tonight, everyone.